this point of the competition. It's whether Toxic can keep himself together with what's left and also finishing things off with the Scale Bearer on that lineup, which is going to be really interesting. We don't really haven't had a chance to see too much Scale Bearer today. We've seen him a little bit here and there. Slash very much the same, but again, Toxic very much known for bringing these less popular picks to the table, and now obviously Slash receiving that minor buff as of late, giving her that armor on spawn is definitely going to help those existing Slash players, and Toxic, being that Quake 4 god that he is known for being one of them. But ultimately, I think if he can, really when it boils down to it, all he has to do is play well for one more series, and then he can just chill out and relax, knowing that he's already done it. Just one more left to go, that's all he needs.
You know, that champion lineup kind of reminds me very much of almost like a week 1 lineup from Toxic. Scale Bearer already in there. Like that's a very sort of traditional, we would see that really early on throughout the championship. Scale Bearer at a time was one of, if not the most popular big body, and that has since changed quite significantly. There's going to be 2 big bodies on either of this map, actually. No fear with, or Raisy, I should be saying, throughout the series.
Well, Raisy was predicted to perhaps, I don't want to say go out early, but definitely maybe not predicted to get as far as he has today, but he has just been playing out of his absolute mind.
He's had a cracker of a day so far, and his potential final opponent being Toxic. I mean, this is almost in some ways a complete final boss. Toxic gets the early frag, but they trade it because the acid ticks down, makes it 1-1.
This is a question of Toxic. His Slash has definitely sort of seemed to be his comfort zone today in terms of champion selection. Now, while Toxic is more than capable on both Ranger and Scale Bearer, losing that Slash early remains to be seen if that's going to be a huge impact to him in the rest of the round.
It's all, throughout today we've seen him, losing Slash has been quite impactful because of just the job that she seems to serve, especially early on.
It's already slowed down a little bit though. Let's not forget that Dire Orb doing a ton of damage on impact, especially against a champion like Anarchy, who only has that 75 health to work with. So if he can get a good Dire Orb, that can almost delete him by itself.
Toxic's had some good shots already. He got a nice, respectable mid-air against Sorlag earlier on. A big factor here is going to be Toxic needs to keep that aim, that traditional aim that everyone knows, and it really is one of the elements that makes him such a famous player. But losing those shots or missing those shots.
Ooh, nice attempt there to get on him. Oh, there's the injection pop, almost trading ability for ability, but again, that 20-second cooldown on the Dire Orb.
He did get a little bit of damage, but it's definitely not going to be, I think, enough. He definitely was probably looking for a little bit more, especially since he got a good read there. But the payout
it made enough of an impact for Raisy to not chase that kill, so at the very least he was able to keep himself safe, whilst perhaps not getting as much damage on the table as he would have liked. Definitely made a bit of a difference. But we can see that injection almost already back. It's going to be a bit of a changer in these 1v1s. Ooh, misses that rail on Toxic, who was at the time crouching.
Both players have one sort of set champion that can run rings around this map, particularly on Ruins of Sarnath, where if you're really fast and you can build up speed efficiently, you can kind of cycle around the map and get to where you want to be way faster than anyone else. The thing is, Toxic's, the champion Toxic has to do that is Slash. Raisy went Sorlag first, which means that he still has that extremely agile, extremely hard to hit and pin down champion, and Toxic is going to be the one that kind of really has to chase him, I feel.
Indeed, but halfway through this first round, 2.5 minutes now down. Halfway point has been reached, but again, I mean, both of these guys being very timid. I think it's worth remembering that this is a make or break game for both of these players. You know, this is losers bracket action, and ultimately, when it goes to Quake World Championships at QuakeCon, the other one isn't going anywhere. That is their journey done in the DueL Cup. So you kind of understand why they're being so careful.
Toxic's just got ambushed by that majorly chunky rocket.
Is he getting chased though? You can see
it definitely looks like Raisy is trying to press this advantage. Tries to go in for the telefrag and misses it as well. And that's very likely he's going to lose that life. He does indeed. Doesn't get the telefrag.
Was still able to get himself back up some health and armor, so quickly able to top up, but Toxic gets him on spawn. Toxic cannot chase it though, doesn't quite have the equipment to deal with it.
He has an LG, but knowing that Raisy, he has a rocket, right? And then that's it. If you catch Scale Bearer without armor, and he hits a big chunky rocket.
Oh my lord, the distance he got on that, yeah, and followed itself up.
Just like that. I mean, that's a complete perfect example of Scale Bearer, even though he's one of those larger, more defensive champions, I guess, in terms of like his health and armor pool. If he hasn't got full stack, he's still going to be very vulnerable.
He still can be a bit of a sitting duck. You know, if you knock him up in the right way, and especially if you can follow up a rocket with a rocket, if you have the aim to do so, it can be super dangerous. But Toxic, once again, starting on this Slash. A little bit of damage coming out from the trail on Raisy, but he was able to get that mega health, so going to sponge that up quite nicely.
Got rid of a fair chunk of armor, and there you go, actually Toxic stepping in the acid tick. Does land a couple of these rails, but so far fails to connect. They trade it back and forth. Toxic's got to be so careful here with only 20 HP remaining.
We did already see just how much of a difference it makes when Toxic doesn't have access to the Slash. If Raisy can get rid of Slash early, especially not maybe trading out at the same time, then it's going to put him in a much better situation.
I feel like Sorlag is a really good answer to Slash, though, because the way we're seeing Toxic efficiently go for these fights is he forces like a point-blank engage, but she's so fast, it's actually hard to hit her at that range. If you're Sorlag, that is the best chance you have of hitting the acid spit, and if she walks into just 2 of them or 3 of them, she's in big trouble.
Well, also, that tick damage is going to stay no matter where you go, so it doesn't matter how much distance you manage to cover as Slash, you're still going to be seen through the walls to a certain degree.
Absolutely.
But look at all that stack coming out on the side of Raisy. There's one chunky lizard to deal with, and Toxic's got his work cut out to sort of take that down.
If he lands a couple of rails before he has the up-close fight, it's going to be much better for him. It's a big part of these big chunky champions is just doing a little bit of damage here and there as you go. So when they inevitably have to fight up close, they're not as equipped to deal with you.
Nice amount of damage coming out.
Ooh.
To Raisy right now. Ooh, good rocket coming out from Toxic.
Minimal damage, but more important data, I think, just to say where he is in the map currently.
Lost all of his armor. Toxic's got to be careful for a little while now. Mega health is up, but heavy armor already secured. Oh, Raisy sees him as he follow.
I don't know whether Toxic saw him, but he would have heard the rocket regardless. Definitely caught sight of him there, Toxic, though. Here's the rocket. Doesn't want to step forward a little bit too much.
Oh, wow, 2 rockets coming through. Missed all of the acid, but still got a point-blank rocket with the damage. Toxic is still massively low on health. Can he get away? Oh, he tries to jump through, but swift rockets do enough.
Unfortunately, doesn't quite get where he wants to go right there and just jumps straight into a wall for his trouble.
That is the danger, though, when you're trying to make these tricky pathing in the middle of a fight. Especially when you're getting hit by rockets and it's basically just knocking you around to places you don't want to be.
Toxic, he's been on the back foot so consistently, and a huge part of that is losing that Slash. He's got the Ranger again. He's tried to go for a couple of telefrags here, actually, throughout the first round.
Or at the very least, just get the impact damage of the Dire Orb, but just hasn't quite been hitting its mark at the moment.
That's going to be a very clear adjustment, I think, is that when he goes for those, well, very brave decisions, because if you mess up your Dire Orb and you teleport into the opponent and you've actually done no damage or minimal damage, you've now lost that escape option. You know, you've lost the means to get out of there without dying. Crazy. Tags him on the back end. Going in for it again.
Only got the damage over time, but it's enough to know where his opponent is. And this is Sorlag. Look at how much health he still has left despite taking all of that.
Toxic's not going to be as fortunate in that exchange. Point blank, and he actually gets a point blank 100 damage rocket, and it still wasn't enough.
Wow. I mean, only 25 health left to go, but enough to get the heavy armor. One of those fortunate deaths where, as Toxic is respawning, Raisy is able to secure those important pickups. And the armor being one of them, when you've just got that much health, armor is so important. It just makes it even harder to deal with.
I feel like this is quite dangerous for Toxic because, I mean, we can't forget the fact that this is Toxic's map. This was his selection. If he loses the map that he's picked, the next map is going to be one that Raisy wanted.
Well, I do believe that map number 2 is going to be Corrupted Keep, which, yeah, if No Fear went for with this Sorlag, we already saw him do amazing things on that map earlier.
Toxic steps into the acid again, so he's once more giving Raisy that vision, and the vision was absolutely what he wanted. It's 2 rounds to 0.
That's the Scale Bearer, though, that big target, lacking defensive options when he doesn't have the ball rush available. If you can pin him in a small area, it's hard for him to avoid. He's a big target, so it's hard to actually miss him. When you're playing someone like Sorlag, that the acid is just such a game changer in the middle of a fight. That's a morbid situation to be in.
Her shred ability is, in some ways, like unrivaled, where she lands every single splat of that acid in combination with the weapon that she's currently holding. You know, if you get hit by a good trail of lightning gun and the acid together, your health, no matter what champion you are, disappears in the blink of an eye.
Toxic now starting with Scale Bearer, though, mixing things up a little bit, not going for that Slash first.
I think it's that in many ways that's probably an answer to Sorlag, in that I feel like Raisy has gone Sorlag because he's expected the Slash, and that is his answer to this matchup. So Toxic has been in a situation where he goes, right, he's probably going to go Sorlag again. I now need to counter that. And once somebody gets the Anarchy, that's when I need to go for Slash and go toe-to-toe. Going in with the LG, is it going to be enough? No! Surviving again! Just how much stack did Raisy have there?
I think it was a mixture of stack and the fact that in the middle of that fight, Raisy was managing to pick up health pickups as he went. So even though Toxic just nuked down so much health, he was just keeping himself healthy at the same time. That was just good positioning by Raisy, and actually did a good job of not only just surviving that attack, but actually killing Toxic Scalebearer in the process.
Caught off guard going in for heavy armor. But with that tick combined with Rockets, Toxic is again on the back foot so heavily. 3 straight rounds. I mean, I can't say I've expected this turnout.
But that is just the sheer health of Sorlag. I mean, when you have full armor, I mean, 150 health, 100 armor, that is a significant amount of damage to deal with, especially when in return she can spit acid on you to just nuke your health down, and at the same time, she's shooting you with the same weapons you're shooting her with.
That Mega just making the divide between health so much more significant. Goes in for the Dire Orb Telefrag again, and unfortunately misses it a second time in a row. And just like that, 3 straight rounds. Toxic's in a bit of trouble here.
I actually think you kind of brought up the most important point moving into the second map here was Ruins of Sarnath was Toxic's choice. That was the map that he selected. We're now going to be going into map 2, which I believe is Corrupted Keep, which is what Raisy picked. And that was also Raisy's choice in the last set we saw him play, which was probably his strongest map we've seen him today. And that is now what we're going in again in this one.
It opens up a cause for concern, I think, because Corrupted Keep, from what we've seen today and across the championship, but more particularly today because Sorlag, this really has been the tournament for Sorlag. She's been picked so often to such good success, but on Corrupted Keep specifically, she has a lot of control here because it's up close, it's personal, lightning gun and rocket launcher runs wild. In combination with her acid, the area denial of the acid for both major pickups with that mega health and the heavy armor, her ability to just tank so much damage and dish out some of the highest damage output in the game. No doubt we're going to see Raisy go for Sorlag on Corrupted Keep as well.
But also, the big thing of Corrupted Keep, and we point this out every time because it's consistently a big thing, the lack of rail on Corrupted Keep is usually a big deal of, for example, like Toxic. I think it's definitely fair to say Toxic is definitely not playing at his full level right now. You know, he is having some issues playing to the level we're used to seeing him at. That being said, he's not playing badly. He's still got so far in the tournament today by itself. But normally known for those almost like surgical rails, that just godlike accuracy with a railgun. You would normally pick this map against a player like that to sort of take that option away from them. But at the same time, Raisy hasn't really been using the railgun at all to the same sort of success rate as other players because he just hasn't really needed it. The way he's been playing, especially the Sorlag, he really seems to prefer just getting right in your face, outlasting you with that sheer health and armor value, and just nuking you down with a rocket launcher and the acid.
Here we go, Scalebearer immediately. Very good map for Scalebearer, I find, Corrupted Keep, because he is able to sort of use the charge in between those major pickups. Galena, another, in some ways you would think, unorthodox pick, but again, a very good map for Galena. But speaking of a specific champion that is good on Corrupted Keep, we see BJ get selected again.
We did. Now, actually, I was going to say that's probably one of the most surprising things we've seen today overall is BJ Blazkowicz. We have not seen him played much at all, at least on our streamed games, which is interesting because normally, especially on Corrupted Keep, he was almost 100% picked, at least in Europe, where he was just a favored strong choice.
We touched on this earlier today, and I think it's worth bringing up again, is that I feel like in some ways the lack of Blazkowicz being selected on Corrupted Keep now is because Clutch is not selected as much anymore either, because it was a map of which, if you were on Corrupted Keep beforehand, before this patch where Clutch received a little bit of changes to his health and armor, you would pretty much pick him every time. And we did indeed see him on at least one of the 2 comps every time we were on Corrupted Keep, so Blazkowicz was an answer to that. Now Clutch isn't as selected as often. Maybe there isn't as much cause to pick him. On the flip side of that, Sorlag still majorly tanky, and she hasn't got the shield wall.
Well, to be fair, Blazkowicz is, we mentioned this quite a lot, but he's just built to kill champions. You pick him because you just want to shred someone's health down, no matter who they are, no matter what the situation. You want to dual wield those lightning guns or the machine gun, whatever it is, and just get that health out of there. And he's picked it first into Raisy, who's been playing Sorlag first every time. Do you think this is a direct answer to the Sorlag?
The Sorlag was clearly like public enemy #1. This is the champion that Toxic needs to deal with, and he absolutely acknowledges that.
And that's exactly what he just did. Almost effortlessly taking out the Sorlag immediately. Toxic adjustment, showing to be intelligent right from the word go. Less than a minute in, and already that problematic Sorlag is out of there.
And that was Blaskovic pick first. Now, although he's just lost Blaskovic, the important thing is that now Sorlag is gone. So it's now going to be a 2v2 between Anarchy and Galena versus Scalebearer and Ranger. But really, Sorlag's been the problem, and Toxic has taken care of that problem.
But now out to Anarchy. But DJ Blaskovic has gone down, so Sorlag off the table too. Scalebearer versus Anarchy. I feel like this is almost like one of those week 1 matchups that we used to see quite often. Scalebearer was supremely popular early on in the qualifiers. Not so much now, but still has his place with certain players. And that LG damage coming out, and there we go. The frag is down. And Raisy's Anarchy looking to be problematic. Raisy's accuracy with the LG today has actually been incredible.
The thing is, in that fight, Toxic's accuracy on LG was also superb. It just took him a little bit longer to swap to the LG. While he's taking all that damage on the flip side, with the rocket out, doing no damage, maybe if it had swapped to it earlier, we might have seen basically him just contesting it there.
Kind of feel like this is a round that Toxic desperately needs, though. For more than just the obviousness of needing the round to win, but also knowing that he was able to take out that Sorlag that's been such a problem so quickly, but to then end up losing that round anyway, means that even if you take out what seems to be public enemy #1, it's still not that easy, and Raisy is able to take that round down. Toxic now down a round, and what could be the final map for him.
I think Toxic losing, the potential of him losing 6 rounds straight is definitely a massive upset. This is not going to be what we expected, but this is Toxic. I have no doubt he can pull this one back. Toxic swaps up Scalebearer, maybe anticipating Raisy switching out of Sorlag, but perhaps he just wants to contest with the health and armor differences.
It also means that Raisy's still confident in this choice, regardless how it went last time. Maybe he just wasn't quite ready for how the fight was forced.
That heavy machine gun on deck. Does manage to swap out to it, but combining both the acid spit and the LG again. Toxic goes down, losing his Scalebearer. And this time he swapped to Ranger. He's saving BJ for the last minute. Beat him towards the Mega as well. Toxic is in big trouble at this point. Already down to his final champion.
Or tries to top himself up, but Toxic is hot on the trail with that dual wield, and Toxic is trying to following him so he can't actually survive. And even though he was able to get that heavy armor, just didn't have the health to sponge it, and Toxic is able to make this one a little bit more even. Still has a bit of a comeback to make here. That's one champion versus the two that are still left. He's going to force this fight, only has a little bit of health left, and that's going to go down too. Toxic drops again, and in swift fashion, a second round is now on the table.
I mean, I can't believe we're saying this, but just like that, this is match point for Raisy.
5 rounds straight, Raisy over Toxic.
This could very well be one of the fastest series that we've seen today as well.
I mean, this isn't what anyone predicted. We thought perhaps, 2-0 Toxic, 2-1 Toxic. Dan even said on the desk 2-1 perhaps to Raisy, but that's a good way to start things off, at least for Toxic, getting that nice charge kill.
Got a nice spawn on Anarchy as well, but it is going to be a spawn that puts Anarchy right next to LG, so even though he's caught with just his base stats, and LG with a map, it's still going to be fantastic for dishing out the damage, and because of that, Toxic forced to be very careful here. Raisy's lightning gun has been superb, and he gets it. Trades it out 1 for 1.
Perhaps Toxic just didn't expect Raisy to follow him into that situation. Maybe he thought he was going to sort of try and run towards the mega health room. Heavy armor's going to be up any second now, and there we go. A nice frag coming out from Toxic. That's the kind of thing we need to see.
He's been trying to get that telefrag all series, and it's good that he's finally landed it. Just for even to just remind himself that throughout the series, yes, he can get that.
Still, though, this is make or break for Toxic. If he loses this Ranger,
oh no,
he actually might. There we go. Toxic is left with one more champion. BJ Blaskovic by himself. Toxic is potentially left with 1 life left in the Quake World Championships, unless he can take out Raisy's Galena here and now.
He's actually activated the dual wield almost immediately, it looks like. Unless I'm just completely blind. We'll soon find out.
Toxic still here, though. Gets the heavy armor, but we know he's still down there.
Yeah, he had used the dual wield.
No!
He hasn't got it available. He's stuck in the air. Toxic's in trouble, and Raisy manages to take him out. 6 rounds straight.
That is the last thing we expected to see. I mean, even though the win is impressive enough, but 6 rounds in a row, relatively uncontested.